Okay.
Ooh, what a sexy voice.
That does not relate to planning. So here we go. I want to happy holidays. I want to welcome everybody tonight to our December 2022 El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee meeting. I'm the chair, John Davey. Tonight with us, we have Vice Chair Tim White, Vice Chair John Raslier, a little bit of foreshadowing, Secretary Robert Williams. I'm looking at my list, see if anybody else is jumping in. You know, this is a difficult time of year, or difficult for us to have meetings just because everyone's busy and we want to respect everyone's time. But our charter does say that, our bylaws rather, our guidelines say that we elect our officers in December. So the focus of this meeting is to get everyone in place and then to get everyone back to home and holidays. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order. And where's my, I gotta find buttons while I'm doing this. Sorry, gang. Okay. So the first order of business tonight is, let's see, is it going? There we go. We've called the meeting to order. The adoption of our meeting agenda. If there are no objections to what we have here planned tonight, it's going to be a super short meeting. And seeing no hands going up or anything, I'm going to move on. We offer an opportunity for public comment at the beginning of our meetings for anything that's not on our agenda. So we have a light audience tonight. If anyone has any questions or they have some comments they'd like to offer for the meeting, go ahead and put your hand up on Zoom. I'm looking over there on our attendees. I see no hands going up. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead. The next opportunity we have here tonight is we usually hear from Supervisor Heidel for supervisor communications. And Supervisor not here yet tonight. He might be rolling in late, but there is an event in Cameron Park tonight from the El Dorado County Fire Safe Council and I believe the Cameron Park Fire Safe Council. They're doing some table models and they're talking about you know, some projections of what happens in a fire in the Cameron Park and Shingle Springs area. So we're recognizing that not everyone is going to be here tonight. I'll go ahead and we'll skip Supervisor Heidel's comments and we have no guest speaker tonight. And then the very first thing we do is we have our officer election for 2023. So I won't keep anybody, you know, waiting breathlessly. Our candidates this year, we had Bob Williams generously volunteered to participate at an officer level with us, and he was identified to hold that secretary position. Brooke Washburn was moving over to the vice chair. Tim White continues as vice chair. John Raslier as vice chair, and then I was up to serve as chair again. So the results were unanimous. We have 15 voting members. 10 members did vote for this election. It seems oddly self-serving to be doing this, but there you go. So congratulations to our vice chairs. Congratulations, Bob. Thank you for stepping up and volunteering to participate with us. It's
now, do I get a special steno pad or anything of that nature?
I was hoping a superhero cape. But,
okay, that's fair.
So, but yeah, and you know, and truthfully, when we as officers and as voting members, you know, we recognize that we try to. It's hard for us to adhere to the Brown Act in terms of you know, we're not appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and the way we communicate is via email. So we're always communicating together as a group. So, but we do respect, you know, that we try to keep our deliberations out in front of people here when we have our meetings and provide our feedback at the meetings. Small group of people, so we do talk a lot amongst ourselves. So for the public that might be tuning in, we recognize that you know, we're not strictly an organization that functions with those rules. There's no requirement for us to do it, but we try to where we can. So and I'd like to thank everybody that you know, these officers that are volunteered to participate. Would love to get some more people involved and have more people as voting members, and possibly more committees where we can break groups up into smaller bites when we're reviewing projects. So with that said, how you become a voting member of APAC is that you volunteer to work on a project to review, or a subcommittee or an ad hoc committee. We help you. None of us knew what we were doing when we started this. We had guidance from people who were ahead of us, had done a little bit before. And so we try to help each other and it's entirely possible if you joined, volunteer to work on a subcommittee or a project review, you might have an approach that's better than the way we do it now. And we want to hear from community and embrace those opportunities to improve our processes and to hear from more people. So with that said, if there's no more questions about our election, and I don't see any hands going up, so here we go. We're moving on. So we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting last month, our proposed meeting schedule. So we meet the second Wednesday of every month. This year we've done 6:30 as our time, and it's worked okay. We want to respect the fact that people can't be here for a 5 p.m. meeting. You know, people are working, trying to get home, feed their kids, feed themselves, just life. And we wanted to make a compromise because our 7 o'clock meetings would run well past 9 when there's a big project or many projects. So 6:30 seemed to work this year or in the past year. We're projecting we'll continue with the 6:30 p.m. start time. We'll meet in person and virtual. So in person, we've been meeting at the fire station 85 using the executive conference room there. And we've identified a couple months with some asterisks on this chart. We did skip, I want to say 3 meetings this year, just because there's a lack of updates or a lack of project development that requires us to meet and review. So we've identified a few of these. These are all, you know, this is a puzzle. We'll move things around as we need to. But right now, I know that we have a DOT has offered to meet with us at least once a year as a sole subject for one of our meetings. Maybe twice, maybe 3 times, depending on what they have going on. But I did speak to Director Martinez's office. They've committed to our March meeting. So we'll be hearing from DOT about projects primarily and topics related to El Dorado Hills in District 1, 2, and 4. So I know that we have a lot of people here. Traffic's always a sensitive subject. And you know, I think it helps when the department is engaged and wants to reach out to keep the community informed. I think we get a better sense of the sort of the obstacles and the challenges that they're up against as a department. So we'll have that coming up. Obviously, as projects develop and we need to provide reviews, we'll do that as well. So it's conceivable we'll meet 12 times this year. Maybe we'll only meet, you know, 8 times, or we'll see how it goes. So moving along to the next item we have here. I wanted to bring this up just so people see it. It'll be in our meeting recording when people watch it, that they have an opportunity to understand and know what was going on here. So on Thursday last week, the El Dorado County Planning Commission had a workshop from the water agencies, and it was one that I know that Commissioner Vania, our District 1 commissioner, and that other commissioners had asked for a long time, because when a project's proposed, the first things that people talk about, like me, is traffic. And the second thing people always want to know is about, well, where's the water coming from? You know, whenever we're in a drought, which seems to be more frequent than not, we face restrictions. The restrictions are from the state. They're imposed on the local water agencies, and they have to meet a goal of lower output in terms of water usage, or else they eventually, if the state is serious about it, they incur penalties for those local water districts. And the way that projects are reviewed is that they look at what's available, not necessarily what's available during a drought, but just what water rights individual agencies have and what's planned for the area. It's a really complicated topic. I was trying to listen to the meeting. I was working and I was in and out of the meeting. I've gone back and listened to it as well. It's a long meeting. I want to say it's about 3 hours of water planning. The El Dorado County Water Agency was up first, and they talked about how they sort of holistically support all the different special districts and water agencies in the county, and provide sort of that high level overview of planning for growth and for the need for water. And then the El Dorado Irrigation District, who serves our community, most of our community, they did their presentation second, and there was a lot of good questions from the planning commissioners. And it was a long discussion. And I think I was talking with Tim before we started the meeting tonight. I would love to be able to have each of those agencies come and talk to us so that people understand, when we're looking at projects to review, why they give that answer. It's always yes. In the early 90s and the late 80s, there was a building moratorium in El Dorado County because water rights hadn't been secured in an adequate fashion, that they didn't know that they had enough for building. And then they moved forward and they've secured additional rights, and they've continued to secure additional rights. But it's a lot of information. So, and I don't know if anybody was able to check in on that meeting, but it's like anything involved planning and these elements here, you could fall asleep easily through it, but if there's something that piques your curiosity, if you have an interest, there's good questions to ask. So
I apologize.
I was hoping that again, that we'll be able to have them come and make a more focused presentation, maybe just for us here in El Dorado Hills and districts 1, 2, and 4. So but and then the other part of this too, sorry, let me go back before I jump off of that. So we're going to have at least one new planning commissioner, possibly two. Obviously, in District 3, John Clarici, who's been the planning commissioner, he was previously on the Placerville City Council. He ran again for the City Council, and he did win that seat. So he obviously will not be on the planning commission any longer. So they'll be selecting a new planning commissioner for District 3. Nobody's been identified yet. Nobody's really talked about it. I spoke with Commissioner Vena, and he served as chair for 3 or 4 years easily, at least 3. And they try to rotate, and but they've had a lot of turnover in the commission. I think the intent this year is for Commissioner Nevis from District 4 to serve as the chair, and that Commissioner Vena would probably slide to vice chair along with Commissioner Payne. And those are sort of the 3 longer serving planning commissioners. And then for District 5, we don't know. Commissioner Harkin was appointed to complete the term of a planning commissioner that moved out of the county. So we don't know if the new supervisor District 5, Supervisor Lane, will be appointing somebody else, or maybe she might select Commissioner Harkin to continue to serve. So it's a dynamic sort of environment. I know that talking to them individually, that they're eager to work well together. I think that we do have at least 3 that will still be there, that are very inquisitive. Obviously, Commissioner Vena has been there, and he always asks sort of pointed questions. Commissioner Nevis as well. So, and then Commissioner Payne he worked for the county for many years, and then retired from El Dorado County service, and primarily in DOT. So they have a lot of insight, and they have a lot of sort of curiosity that sort of aligns with things that residents would ask. So hoping that they have whoever is added to their roster this year, that they're just as inquisitive and just as sort of resident and community focused. So that was my little aside there on the planning commission. So for our projects, we do have one thing I wanted to bring into this. At the community council meeting last Monday, Supervisor Heidel, gave some updates about Central El Dorado Hills Pacific Plan, about Costco, saying that basically, they haven't moved forward yet. The Central project, which we provided our feedback on, they are working with the planning department and with the CAO's office to modify their project in some fashion, in which they would then bring it to the Board of Supervisors. And I know there was a bit of a discussion between Supervisor Heidel and Commissioner Vena at the community council meeting. Commissioner Vena wants that if there's any significant changes, that his expectation is that it would come back to the planning commission for additional review. But if they're not touching the environmental documents, and it's strictly the development agreement, which is sort of what's being suggested, then it probably would not come back to the planning commission. So wait and see. The expectation was that they believe that it would be no sooner than January before that would even be scheduled in any fashion. but there's been no news, no updates. We haven't heard from the applicant since the summer, the late summer and fall. So stand by. We'll provide our review of whatever changes are proposed, and we'll provide that to the Board of Supervisors as we have in the past. And then for Costco and EDH 52, Costco's kind of waiting because they wanted to. There's a project owner that owns a property, EDH 52, which is AKT, and then Costco obviously is buying their property from them. They wanted to do a parallel project so that their environmental documents were processed simultaneously, because they're sort of a combined project in terms of proximity and their impact there in the community right there along the highway at Silver Valley Parkway. It does sound like EDH 52 is making some modifications. I think Supervisor Heidel had suggested that there might be some multifamily residential opportunity there. They're still talking about, I believe, a storage facility, self-storage. So the dynamics of that project might be changing. So until we hear from them, all we have are the documents that were in front of us when we got our first glimpse and when they met with us last year and provided their first look at both the projects. So, and then in terms of the other projects, everything seems to be sort of at a standstill. I expect that we're going to see a bit of that in terms of where the economy is at right now, what interest rates are doing, because a lot of these projects have to be financed either through bond sales or through lenders. It's kind of tough to set these up. Some of these are big projects like Town and Country Village, the Mahana project, and they've been generous with their time, talking with us many, many times. But they did have their, I believe that they had a TAC meeting not too long ago. We did provide some questions about, what the residential portion they're talking about for their employee residential, and then a lot of questions about traffic. But until we see the documents, with like a draft EIR, we don't have a lot really to base anything on other than what they've shared with us. So, and that sounds like that project too is still sort of evolving. The Generations at Green Valley, which was the former Dixon Ranch project, Supervisor Heidel had mentioned at the community council meeting that he had met with the applicant. I have an email into them, and they said that when they're ready, that they'll be coming to APAC so they can begin to share what they envision. They have an application in. I believe it's marked as incomplete on Trackit in the county tracking system. So, but what they had sort of what they have there submitted right now is a smaller, less dense version of the plan that had been denied in 2017, and that they had focused on the primary objection of many residents in that community right around there was that it wasn't a compatible land use with the RE10 and RE5, sort of rural estate, residential estate properties. And so their proposal is to match sort of the existing uses and have large estate lots on the outsides of their project, and the density would be in the middle. So it'd be a buffer to the existing RE10 and the RE5 type of properties that are over there. And then, obviously there'll be a lot of impacts to traffic for Green Valley Road. But until we see the application, they're ready to come talk to us about it. Again, it's kind of been hold. I always look here at the Marple Valley and Lime Rock Valley. The notice of preparation of the draft environmental impact reports and the scoping meetings for both projects were held in 2012. There's been no documents processed since then. I know they're working on them, but there's been nothing shared with the public since then. In fact, there's no project data on the county websites anymore because the county has changed their project tracking software 3 times since then. So I don't know how valid a scoping meeting from 2012 is if we haven't seen anything come from it or seen any of the questions answered in the draft or the EIR. So we're waiting on that as well. I know that they're ready to do something with it, and that they've been continuing to work on their environmental review. And then looking at Summerbrook, Tim and I talked with the communications outreach team that they've hired. It's a project was approved in 2007. It's 29 homes right along Green Valley Road. right across from Pleasant Grove Middle School. And as part of their conditions of approval, they were to signalize the Deer Valley and Green Valley Road intersection. That intersection was also improved in 2014 when they added the Silver Springs intersection a little further to the east with the traffic signal there. DOT came back and told them in 2017, 2018 that it looks like there's no more traffic warrant that would justify a signalized intersection there because development didn't occur in sort of the the numbers they thought. Their projections were incorrect essentially. So DOT told the applicant, hey, you don't have to put in that traffic signal. They sold the project to a new developer who's building the Silver Springs, the Revere at Silver Springs, Blue Mountain Communities. And then when they came to finalize their tentative maps, planning department said, well, you've got to build this traffic signal. And they said, well, wait, we were told we don't have to. And it's $1.5 million. So I talked with them early last year about that. Went to the planning commission, but they pulled it off, took it off calendar because there was a lot of community objection to it. They're willing to write a check to pay for their portion of a traffic signal. They're just not going to build it. When I talked to them last year, they said that they have all their underground work done. They have the roads internal to the project done. Sewer, I can't remember if they do have sewer. They have water, electrical. All the utilities are in. They said that they might have to abandon the project if they have to put in a traffic signal for $1.5 million. So I know Tim and I felt that was a bit specious. We've talked to the communications team. They're looking for some solutions. We'll see what comes from that, but they're ready to come back and talk to us to hear input from the community, specifically from the area around there, but also from El Dorado Hills Rescue, Cameron Park. They want to hear, what the thoughts are in terms of what they're going to propose. I know they're not going to propose a traffic signal. So that's where we're at on that. There's some other projects on here that nothing's really happening with. Some are long standing that nothing's happened. Some are just pre-applications. The El Dorado Hills Sophia Parkway Neighborhood Retail Center, which includes a quick car wash and 2 drive-through uses, would be across the Sophia Parkway from the Arco, the AMPM gas station there. So I know when that project was proposed, there was sort of an outcry about having fast food right there as you enter El Dorado Hills and the traffic impacts it would have right there for the community. They did just that applicant also is doing they have that approved project for the El Dorado Hills Folsom self-storage. And they've went to the Board of Supervisors to sign off on. They have a project where they're adding a lane in front of their property eastbound that would serve as a dedicated right turn lane onto Sophia Parkway, but would also have the access driveway for both these projects would be involved there. So it would be right in, right out only. And then there'll be another access point on Sophia Parkway, and it would have to be right in, right out as well because there's a center median there. So that's coming up soon. The quick car wash requires a conditional use permit. That's a lot of noise, but there's already a car wash there with the Arco AMPM gas station. So I'm sure the community will have some things to say about that. So that's for project. There's one more, and I just got the email on it, I think yesterday. And strangely enough, it's right next to the Summerbrook project. It literally shares a property line with it. And for right now, it's just, it's a pre-application as Green Valley Road. I think, what is it called? Green Valley Road subdivision subdivision map pre-application. They're proposing 54 lots from 1/4 acre to 1/2 acre. They have a lot A that's preservation of a 4 1/4 acre pond, which is on the property, and then a donation of lot B, which is just under 1 acre, and that is actually the historic Pleasant Grove house with the barns that is across from Pleasant Grove Middle School. So they would be using the Silver Springs intersection, which is signalized. They'll be using that intersection and adding a road in, I think it's Bronco Way. I'm turning my head sideways to look at this map. Bronco Way. It would be they're looking for a rezone from RL, which is rural lands, 20 acre, to R1, essentially 1 acre or less. And then it requires a general plan amendment from the designation of the land use from rural residential, which is compatible with the RL20, to a high density residential, which is like most of our neighborhoods in El Dorado Hills. Silver Springs across the road, which is high density. All these projects along Bass Lake Road, where I'm at, all are high density. So that's what they're looking at. It's a TAC meeting coming up, and then it'll be a pre-application, which means that they'll have a hearing at the Board of Supervisors where they identify what they want to envision for their project and get feedback from the Board of Supervisors to make sure there's no significant objections or suggestions. And they'll go back and they'll do a formal application. So this literally just came up. I want to say the TAC meeting, oh, it's right here. It's on the 30th of January. I believe we have to have comments in by the 12th or the 13th. Yeah, I don't know how that's, there's not a lot of information in there for us to make comments about. But after we get past January 1st, we'll go ahead and share it among APAC members to see if anybody wants to take a look at it. They want to suggest any comments or questions. And then, so we just talked about Summerbrook. So now my question initially on this is, well, what impact is this going to have on that signalized intersection they don't want to build for Summerbrook? It's, 54 houses, or 54 lots, which is essentially almost twice as many lots in Summerbrook. So I'm envisioning that they're going to say that, they're going to have to contribute more to an intersection than probably Summerbrook would, even though Summerbrook is conditioned to provide it. They're trying to get out of it. So in terms of projects, that's what we're looking at. That's what's coming up. And then this is the site of where that's at. Bass Lake to the south, Pleasant Grove Middle School right here in the middle. These roads here with this circle and the streets around it, that's Summerbrook. And then around this pond and at the Silver Springs intersection next to Travois, the development right there, this 1 acre home sites. That's the 54 lots that they're talking about building, which is across from Revere at Silver Springs right here. So more road impacts for Green Valley Road. We'll see. Obviously, with the project with Generations of Green Valley, hopefully that they can align all these things and get the mitigation in order to mitigate for all of these projects. So then I want to remind everyone that for our meetings, we do solicit public comments. If you can't be at a meeting or you want to provide a comment, community is welcome to submit them to the EDH APAC.comment@gmail.com email address. As long as we get it on Monday before our Wednesday meeting, we'll try to we'll fit the comments in. And we, for those comments, we like to have it on the agenda items, how they're related to the agenda items. But we want to serve the community in a thoughtful manner. So we'll take any of those comments as we go through. And so we'll talk about the next meeting here in a second, but I know that I've been with email with Bob that, he has some questions about sort of how environmental impact reports are either updated or the reviews are updated. So I'm hoping that we can get a subcommittee together this year to start talking about that. Because I know the planning department had said that they would be willing to come and discuss items like that. And so, if for a project being changed many years after it was approved or as it's approved, we'd love to have sort of a presentation. I know that they gave a presentation on plan development overlays at our community council meeting, and I asked for them to come and do a similar one for APAC, but they're understaffed and they're hiring a lot of new people. So I'm hoping that this year, as they get new people on board, that we have an opportunity that they can come and talk to us. And then as, an ad hoc or a subcommittee that we can explore and sort of generate our own questions, maybe find some of our answers, and then ask for the planning department to provide that feedback. Are we wrong? Where are there opportunities to provide additional community feedback? Items like that, and any other topics that we want to look at. It looks like right now it appears that our projects for the year might be sort of curtailed by the economic situation in terms of how projects are financed. So I think there's an opportunity for us to gather information and get some and be educated by our county departments. I think it's a good opportunity. So before we talk about our next meeting, and our next meeting is January 11th, 2023. Hard to believe that we're there. I'm going to stop this thing here. So I talked a lot, which is not good for anyone. So if there are any questions or comments that anybody wants to share, I'll just say that, thank you everyone who's here watching, everyone who participates, our voting members, and obviously our office. So okay, Brooke has her hand up. You go, Brooke, go.
Can I just add in on that meeting? I've noticed just two specifics. I mean, we already discussed the Saratoga Estate deviation from the approved plan and from the environmental impact reports and the input from the community. And then we also have the Starbucks, or that Saratoga retail, is now moving to be open 24 hours.
Yes.
Which is a deviation from the CC&R, or the covenants that are supposedly running with the land that were part of Serrano's covenants that affected the operation of that retail facility. So I'm curious if the planning department or even the planning commission could speak to our members and to the voting members, but also to the public at large about the enforcement arm, and kind of reassure the public that their comments are not going to be taken in vain, and that it's worth something to have some of these mitigation numbers or mitigation items and conditions put in these approved plans. Because I'm hearing a lot of my neighbors and pretty disenfranchised with the whole process. They want to get involved. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and Brooke's had a lot of experience with that project because it is literally right in her community. And, that's how Brooke became a voting member of APAC, by working on that project review, providing a lot of thoughtful consideration about the concerns that, people not just in her community, but everywhere around us here in El Dorado Hills had. I don't know on that 24-hour thing, are they even asking for a conditional use permit to modify the hours? Because I know that they had restrictions on deliveries and they had other restrictions, but are they just ignoring that? Is that just something that, have they applied to the county for anything, or is it just, they're just doing it?
No application. They just posted that they will soon be operations. So they changed their hours. They went to midnight without any conditional use permit, which, if I remember hearings, it was such a big issue, but it was also an assurance made by the developer at the time as a condition of approval. And, because we had that issue with the design criteria, which I believe was like the headlight rule that they were claiming, like, don't worry, the hours operation, there would never be headlights that exit a drive-through that would be looking into a residential neighborhood, which was the purpose and intent of the design standards. And so those assurances were made, and those were conditions that went towards the approval. And it's pretty shocking to that they can set aside those design standards and then also set aside those conditions of approval.
And I know that even after this project was approved, after a fashion, that there was an update to the ordinances where they modified their drive-through ordinance for the entire county. But I don't think it was as stringent even as we, I don't think it was more stringent. I just think they just sort of defined it more. But yeah, it's a few hundred feet away from residents right there. And, with it being a morning operation, obviously in this time of year, residents get those headlights, and at night they're getting them. So these are all excellent questions. We probably should delve into it, look at what the COAs were for the project. Because we talked about it a lot. Whether they actually codified that with the COA, that's a good question, because I just remember, it was something we struggled with and the community struggled with.
Right. Yeah, I think so. Just having that answer though from the planning commission or from the planning department, that's what is the enforcement arm if there is something that's built this non-compliance or, non-conformance with those conditions, what can the public do? Who do they report that to? What is the mechanism of relief, I guess?
Brooke, I think from what I've observed, the mechanism is basically someone in the public's got to make a complaint, and then planning might investigate it. I don't think they have people dedicated to looking at conditions of approval a year or 2 or 3 years after something is built to see if anything has changed that goes against the conditions of approval. I think it takes a complaint from the public mostly to generate any action by the planning department.
But would it be directed to the planning department, you think, that initial complaint?
Code enforcement, maybe?
I don't think code
I don't
enforcement.
think so either.
I think you're probably going to have to take it up with your supervisor and have him or her directed to the right right department at the county level, and hopefully get a response.
I know we're not going to vote on anything tonight, but let's talk about drafting a letter from APAC to the planning department, and if we can cite like a COA item that we have a question about. Yeah, I'm uncertain. I'm trying to remember. It's only been a few years, and I've already forgotten if it was a COA or if it was a permit.
There was one about
restraint.
fencing, John. There was one about fencing on one of the projects. I think it was Overlook. The fencing had to be of a certain type, and
Yeah,
the developer then went on to put in like chain link fencing, and it was required that it be wooden fencing, and he was forced to change it out.
I also want to say it was it's supposed to be redwood fencing, and then when they did switch to wood, it was not redwood.
Yeah, something.
It was
yeah.
it was a lower quality wood, yeah, and it was supposed to be a certain height. I don't think they meant that either. And then it was, I think it infringed on the roadway a bit in the right of way for the roadway, or an easement, anyways. So yeah, there are many things that yeah, I'm okay with us. Let's talk about drafting a letter to send that in, but we'll run it past Supervisor Heidel as well. And if there are community members, Brooke, that you think want to be involved, let's ask them, how it's impacting them. If there's anybody you talk to in the community there. But yeah, I'm let's do it. Let's let them know that we remember that there was something.
Yeah,
If we have to do the research, we will, but we'd like them to be responsible to what they approved.
yeah, because the one that's going to come to a head first, I think, is the Saratoga Estates. That's getting pretty ramped up, because that was approved as a non-fenced in gated community. And so now that they put and they've blocked in the parks, and then they've taken physical action against members of the community to physically remove them from these public parks as approved, it's something that I think could explode if there isn't some kind of recourse, because people are really, really upset by that. And then the other thing that I noticed too in the community, that the land that had the vineyards development over there off Malcolm Dixon,
Yeah,
it just got purchased. I saw that, but they didn't say anything about, bringing that back to the table, or who purchased it or what. But those are the two main issues I've heard in the community.
I know that after that was approved, that I think Tim as well. We were Chief Johnson, the fire department, had seen that the project had been listed for sale, and I think that it went into escrow and then fell out of escrow. But they're basically selling an approved project, and then they just went ahead and started doing the infrastructure work, I guess, with the idea of selling it along, with the project entitlements. So yeah, I'm not sure where they're at with it. I know that it had listed as being sold, and then like 2 months later it was available again. So we can ask and check with the planning department to see what they know, and if there's anything that they want to share, and then we could reach out to whoever the developer is, just so, even though there's nothing, if they're building the project as it was conditioned, then maybe it's just an opportunity for them to say, hey, we'd like to let the community know we're starting on this project. And because I know there's been some concerns about the roads over there along Malcolm Dixon, and as they're doing this work, it's been a little intrusive. So it's a chance for them to get out in front of it in the community and let us know what's going on.
Oh, and there was one last one that's really affecting our side is the dirt, airborne, I guess, dirt from the excavation and work on Wilson Ranch and on Sarasota Estates. It's the water measure to keep it from being an airborne nuisance is not happening. And we're having such severe levels of dirt, and people have called, reported it to El Dorado County, but it's a Folsom, it's a Sacramento County project. And so it's kind of interesting, the Folsom Ranch, they're really under as far as our air quality here seems to be that Folsom Ranch. Now it's gone down dramatically since the rains, but before the rains, it was even causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's complicated too, right? Because like you said, in El Dorado County, we have the El Dorado County Air Quality Management District that oversees the fugitive dust from projects. There's a mitigation plan that's supposed to be in place, and they're supposed to be monitoring it again with code enforcement. And I know that in south of the highway, like Four Seasons, Heritage, Stonebriar, those residents have observed that there's a lot of dust that's coming. The wind typically does go here from west to east. So I don't know how that works with Folsom, how we but it's an air quality management district that's our county, and this stuff's coming in, so perhaps there's something that they could do to address that. I know for Saratoga Estates, right, there's supposed to be some monitoring, whether it's and I want to say that is code enforcement, but I don't know how effective it is or how frequent it is. I know that here in the Bass Lake area, when they were building Serrano J6 and the Sienna Ridge Shopping Center, we had a lot of dirt for a year and a half, just everywhere, constantly. They were watering, and I guess they were meeting their requirements, but you can't water constantly, and that's what it would take. So let's ask those questions as well. I know that they had a problem with dirt and soil running off into Bass Lake and to the creeks right there. And basically, the sad part about that is that you file a complaint, and then the turbidity is bad in the lake, and there's a lot of dirt, and you've already altered now the lake ecosystem a little bit. It's a little more aggressive than what would happen if there was a natural sort of dry time and then the dirt made it in the lake. They're excavating, so there's more dirt. But they file a report with the state water board. They come out and look, and they say, okay, how are you going to prevent this in the future? And then they just say, oh, we're going to use best practices, and we're going to have these diversion, what I can't remember they're called, the round tubes with the hay and the stuff in it. And they present the plan, and there's typically no fine. It's just that, okay, don't let it happen again. And when it happens again, they say, okay, well, your plan didn't work. What's your new plan? So for items like that, I think that they are required to wet things down. So let's put that to the planning department. Let's make sure that we have to get make sure
John,
that 2 supervisors in the district, 1 supervisor know about it.
Yeah, I want to add something that when the second phase of Heritage was being built, there was a tremendous amount of dust coming across Heritage 1 and coming into Four Seasons. And we noticed a lot of residents in both communities getting sick. All right. So I had asked the health department to come down. And they came down on a Friday so they could take off the rest of the afternoon. And they said to me, well, we have no no real proof that this is causing it, and goodbye. So that's, and not too recently, Bob, you had in section 3, there was a dust storm coming across that I could not believe. And we're getting dust and dirt from Folsom the new Folsom City.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I complained about that and I was told, well, we can't do anything about it. Well, they can sweep the street. The builders can sweep the street. They don't sweep the street.
Well, we're talking intergovernmental conflict between obviously El Dorado Hills and then Sacramento and the city of Folsom. I don't know the process, but I would think that there is something that I want to acknowledge what you just said, John, about what you reached out on White Rock specifically and the damage being done around White Rocks with truckloads of rocks and the like coming down White Rocks, destroying that area and creating additional pressure and damage to that street. And obviously, your initial efforts in trying to bring that to attention was met with, well, that's nice.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not satisfactory. And perhaps APAC needs to reach out to the state if we can't get to the county.
That might be an avenue to pursue.
You know, why is it that residents have to complain about rocks on the corner of Latrobe on all four corners and get DOT to come down only after a complaint to sweep it once and then they're never there again? You know, you're riding on it. That's your windshield that's going to be broken. You know, it's absolutely ludicrous. And then I'm told, well, commercial vehicles pay a bigger vehicle registration, and that should make up for the destruction of the roads. Well, where does that money go? You know,
Well,
we never see it here.
Well, and those vehicles are registered not here. They're registered probably in other counties and other
They're probably
jurisdictions.
Georgia somewhere.
Well, someplace. But yeah, it's true.
Well, it's a shame that Supervisor Heidel is not here because some of the comments were were pointed toward him, and hopefully that we can maybe underscore the real seriousness of this matter with not only Supervisor District 1, but actually District 2, and we had no real response from him either on this issue. And it's an important issue for those of us who live down in this part of El Dorado Hills.
Certainly. And, there's an opportunity too to loop District 4 in as well for the stuff going on in Malcolm Dixon.
Agreed.
Okay. Well,
So perhaps that should actually be a dedicated meeting topic. Intergovernmental issues and how we pursue that.
so I think probably the earliest opportunity for us to hear from DOT would probably be that meeting in February where they're going to be there anyways.
Okay.
Let's identify that topic and we'll let them know that we have questions about that. And please.
Well, there's air quality. There's also environmental quality issues. There's also code enforcement issues. So, this thing is tied into a lot of different things. And last thing we want to do is have various departments within this county and in other jurisdictions just say, well, sorry. Well,
Yeah.
we'll go to the next person in the bureau to complain. Yeah.
So, but let's plan on talking about some of these items for Saratoga, for White Rock, for
Yeah.
Malcolm Dixon, and if we can get things written down, even if there are community members that want to contribute some comments or anything, let's get them into a document or two, and let's submit them to both the planning department and to each of the three supervisors we've sort of talked about tonight.
On another topic, and I don't know if it's germane for APAC or not, but at what point would we want to entertain having the folks that are now pushing for cityhood to present?
The cityhood question, that's more of a political thing, and I think we talked about that a couple of years ago.
It looks like CST is going to actually, well, certainly they're entertaining putting significant dollars behind that topic, and it should be aired just by at CSD meetings.
The latest stuff from the CSD meeting last week was that a new CSD member, Steve Ferry,
Correct.
requested that an agenda item be added for the first meeting, CSD meeting in January, that Lewis Hampton, who ran for the CSD board,
Right.
but was not elected,
Correct.
he is taking over the cityhood, leading sort of the residents committee on cityhood. And he has proposed to do a 15-minute presentation on it. And I believe they are going to ask the CSD if they are willing to fund the comprehensive, which would cost maybe $75,000 to $125,000 to get the comprehensive fiscal analysis report. In addition, it will probably be required an environmental impact report, which could be a couple thousand. The CSD to date has been reluctant to do so without any additional funds coming in from the El Dorado Hills community, whether that's individuals or it's a chamber of commerce or someone, because there's some politics involved. Some people say he should be doing parks and should be funding a comprehensive fiscal analysis without doing a survey or getting the approval of this, the members of the community.
Yep.
But I think you'll probably see something on cityhood at the January CSD meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. And in terms of APAC's interaction with that, we would probably ask for a presentation if it moves forward about what's envisioned for the, but it won't be defined until one, that it's approved by LAFCO, it goes on the ballot, and then it gets voted in. That first city council will define all the, are we going to farm out the planning process? Are we going to maybe hire the county planning department to manage it for maybe the first year, 2, 5, 10, or go to Folsom and ask them to, hey, can we hire your, just like they'll do with, hey, we want a police department. I imagine the sheriff's department will entertain, a bid to provide those services, or maybe they'll talk to the city of Folsom about it. So, but that doesn't get defined until actually that first city council, right, is in place, and because I guarantee, the nitty gritty details of planning and the different services won't be a part of the ballot measure. It'll just be, do we want to be incorporated? And then that city council, once they're sworn in, there'll be a period of overlap, but once they're sworn in, that's when they start planning the sort of, what departments we're going to create, how we're going to do it. Are we going to hire consultants? Are we going to hire a staff? Are we going to build a city hall? Are we going to rent a building? So all those elements get decided sort of after, residents vote.
Yeah,
but
John,
Would it not be prudent for us to get involved though earlier on, just to understand and to educate?
Yeah, I would like to have, if it moves forward, let's ask for a presentation. Not that we're going to make a decision or anything. We just want.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Comprehensive will indicate that the cost analysis of, okay, if you decide to set up, the city of El Dorado Hills sets up its own planning department, you're going to need this kind of staffing, this kind of software packages. So the comprehensive will have to include cost analysis of doing it or farming it out. The county would say, okay, we'll do it for X dollars plus 10% or whatever it is. So that we will get some information, but as you're right, the newly elected city council will have to decide. It will be up to them to decide how to proceed on all those issues.
Yeah, I agree with you. But so interestingly enough, something from the APAC perspective and cityhood, what I'm hearing from a lot of parents out there is kind of the drive for cityhood is to regain more control over the public fields for our kids. I know Little League has said that the cost to rent the fields, the baseball fields, was astronomical this year, and they don't understand why. So there's a part of me that wants to stay out of the CSD for that political reason. There's a lot of drive on political positions that I don't want to really get into, but it kind of correlates back to I believe a lot of people are talking about the Bass Lake development and the parks and the fields that are supposed to go in there.
Yeah.
To be able to host a lot of these events that El Dorado Hills kids. We can't do tournaments and we can't do a lot of the recreational activities because we don't have access to the field and or the fields are locked up by CDC. So maybe we could have a meeting that kind of correlates into the recreational and park development and what's going on there, that, you know, maybe touches on some of these cityhood issues and the funding and financing and maybe, but just a thought, a roundabout way there, without maybe diving too deeply into the politics.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, and we have several members here that know that there's a political aspect of pretty much everything, but right now the CSD is obviously has challenges with the county, with the Chamber of Commerce, with the community. So we want to make sure if we invite someone to come and address it, that one, that they would be receptive and that they're willing to provide, that we provide an environment that's fair to all parties to hear and to ask questions. I don't think that they would object to it, but they'd have to be receptive to it. In terms of Bass Lake, there's still a lot of issues around that in terms of, I'm in the Bass Lake community. I'm a board member of the Bass Lake Action Committee. Our original organization was founded to provide feedback to that park plan where the county was going to build a smaller version. There are many elements to this that, the CSD wants to be the lead agency on the environmental for this. And I don't know that they're
Capable,
well, I don't know that they have that in-house or they'd have to hire it out. And if you're hiring it out, then you're hiring really a consultant. You're not really the lead agency. And I don't know that the county is receptive to that either. I know when they were at the planning commission a couple of years ago, county council kind of said, well, we're going to have to wait and see. And then the November meeting, when they discussed Bass Lake, the regional park, that they had discussed that, well, yeah, we still don't know that we're going to be the lead agency for the environmental review. There are members of the community, not just here in Bass Lake, but all over, that they believe that, that with 200 plus acres and the impacts to the water and the natural habitat there, that they would like to see an environmental impact report. But I don't think that the county or the CSD is looking at that avenue, that they're just going to do a mitigated negative declaration, which is fine if they address the issues. And there's an opportunity, obviously, for the community to provide that feedback to it. But yeah, it's a big project. And, it was a $15 million project 5 years ago when we first started talking about the CSD, trying to get those pieces together. They're talking about $70 to $100 million.
yeah.
And it's going to be a phased project over probably 20 years. So I know I was on the master plan update committee, the volunteers that looked at the advisory committee looking at master plan and how it was updated. That's a year ago. And sort of the discussion around the volunteers was that, hey, not every park can be everything. Bass Lake Park can accommodate, right now they're talking about, they wanted to do, at one point they talked about doing 6 fields. Now we're down to 3. Now it might be 2, just because of the topography of the park. You can't impact the dam. Just a lot of different elements in terms of parking for that facility. Just like south of 50, anything that happened down there, we'd be talking about a lot of traffic and circulation impacts. Bass Lake Road is not going to be improved. It's not. We might get 4 lanes maybe to the shopping center, and that's it. So talking about 1,000 parking spaces, how do you get, there's not even 1,000 homes on the east side of the park. So or there's just under 1,000. What does that look like in terms of the impacts? Because you have overlap if you host tournaments, people coming in and waiting, people leaving, people playing, just a lot of different aspects. So they have a big project ahead of them, and since it's going to be a phased project, maybe they'll address those things as they build the project out, and that might be a more reasonable way to approach it. Again, I don't think the money exists to do most things that they want to do. So, but yeah, how that impacts in other areas, like we're talking about maybe a 50-acre project south of 50, same thing there too. A lot of dollars, a lot of impact potential. It's a good opportunity for them to come and discuss with us, because I don't know that everyone always attends or listens to the CSD meetings, like they don't listen to the Board of Supervisor meetings, like they don't listen to the Planning Commission meetings. So an opportunity to share information and get feedback. I know that they're very engaged at Bass Lake with getting feedback. So I think there's an opportunity. And we've had them come and present and talk about the lake a few times already. So This meeting's going much longer than I thought it would, but a lot of things that we could take action on.
When you say they don't have enough funding, would the funding for Bass Lake come directly from the El Dorado Hills CSD, or are you talking at the county level?
The CSD, because the CSD, it's they own the lake and they own all the property around it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so again, when we first talked about it, it was $15 million, which is why traffic signal at $1.5 million was about 15% of their budget for the entire park. But now it's 70 million to 100 million. They're talking about they're going to have to lower Selwood Field by 6 feet in order to facilitate the other 2 fields that they want to build.
But can it be a profit generating too? So like, can they not necessarily privatize, but like for things like that, like tournaments and those are sports tourism, like the latest, economic boom to small towns and communities. So
I think there's probably a better opportunity for tournaments south of 50, if we're being honest, because Bass Lake Road isn't going to be improved. It might be able to be improved a little bit, but there's probably more opportunity to improve Latrobe, which needs it now. And there's room to push out right in Latrobe and maybe be a little more, and they're still talking about a beltway to get people off of Latrobe, get people off of White Rock. So there's a lot of opportunity there that doesn't exist at the lake.
what I'm getting at there is if the CSD owns and controls that park, in theory, the money generated from those activities would come back to El Dorado Hills.
Yeah, it would be with the CSD. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, we're wide ranging tonight. So I really wanted to get everybody back to their lives. So if there's nothing else that we need to run past tonight, but let's talk about in January, getting some of those letters together, and we'll, with our officers and with our voting members, we'll discuss who might want to participate in that. So we'll just plan that after January 1st, we'll start looking at some input that we can provide. If there's nothing else here tonight, I want to thank everybody for doing this, being here, volunteering, paying attention, learning, asking questions, and I hope to see each and every one of you in the new year, and that you all have a very good holiday season. And thank you.
Back at
Thanks,
you, John.
All
Everyone
right.
else.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
I second that motion.
Indeed.
Okay. Don't have to vote on it, but it works. Thank you, guys.
All right. Merry Christmas, guys. Bye-bye now.